Hey guys, got a funny story for you. Um, I was talking with some friends the other day, and we were talking about doing excuse me, uh, good Samaritan kind of stories. And when you're trying to do your best to help out, or if you see an acquaintance or arguably a stranger or someone you've seen in passing, and they just need a hand and trying to help them out, you know and it made me think of a really funny story back when I was, a teenager living at my parents. And to give a little backstory to the story, I think we all have had, moments with living at home where we may not always agree with our parents, especially in our later teenage years when we're borderline getting ready to maybe graduate high school or the next journey for those who choose it, going to college, and the anxieties and pressures of making a lot of life decisions there, where at least your new goals that you're setting. And so, like I said, I was kind of a young man at the time living at home, and there would be times when I would have disagreements with my parents. And when that happens, sometimes I think it's best to avoid a fight, getting hotter and hotter and hotter. It was like, you know what, I'm going to go for a walk. And that really helped me. I hope my parents appreciated it. Maybe at the time it seemed like storming off. That wasn't the intent. The intent was to kind of give space, let things simmer out, and then come back with both people, hopefully with a level head, even if there was still a disagreement. And so while I can't 100% say what the disagreement was at the time, again, I was a young man and it could have been something bad on my part. I don't recall, but I do remember I was on one of my walks. It was late at night, probably around 10 p.m. If memory serves, it was a Friday. It was a Thursday or a Friday. It was close to the weekend, but not a Saturday. And so while I was on some of my walks, I would use it as an opportunity to talk to my girlfriend at the time, and I would give her a call, and I'd just be like, hey, this is some stuff I'm going through. Is it me? We go through kind of, and she helped me out tremendously when those moments would happen. Thankfully, I hope from my perspective, I don't think they were too frequent, but, it definitely helped us together, and I appreciated her kind of guidance with some of them. So for this particular one, I vividly remember I'm on one of my walks, and I'm not much of an animal person. I currently don't have any. Actually, that's a lie. I have small pets like fish or lizards, but I don't currently have any cats or dogs. Um, and I wouldn't say I'm not necessarily an animal person per se, but the time and responsibility is where my mind goes. But I'm not going to look at an animal that needs help. I'm not going to ignore that. But I'm not one to go too far out of my way. And so this was an exception for me because I'm on this walk and I see this small dog, no leash, just out. And again, it's about 10 at night where I was at. I couldn't remember if it was daylight savings times or not, but it was definitely dark outside. And to the best of my description, I'm bad with names. Maybe for those in the comments, maybe you know the name of it. But it had what looked like hair instead of fur, and it was maybe this big. It reminds me there was this one movie where people would put like a dog in a purse. I don't know what they're called, but toy something maybe, I don't know. But it was very small, cute little thing, and I see it, and guys, I could see its ribs. I could see its ribs. Like my first thought is like, has this thing been eating? Like how long's it been out for? And so I approached the animal, and I'm still on the phone with my girlfriend, and I'm like, "Hey, don't go anywhere." But I found a dog, and so I see it has the collar, and I look up the collar, and at this point, I'm maybe about give her 2 to 3 blocks away from my parents' house. And so I'm definitely on a walk. I'm not too far away, but I'm on a walk. I don't know any of these, even though they're in my parents' neighborhood, I'm not as close as maybe the people who live on like the same street per se. And so I'm out for this walk, and I don't see the owner. I don't see anyone outside. And so I check the collar. And sure enough, guys, the collar says that this dog, at least per the collar, on the other side of town, like borderline 15, 16 miles. And then I saw the ribs and I'm like, oh my gosh, like a little dog like this, what a distance. I'm impressed. I'm like, wow, how did you get here, little guy? And as I'm thinking about it, and again, I haven't touched the animal. I'm not picking it up because I don't know. That's a I'm like again, it probably looks silly, but I'm like trying to see the collar, but I'm not picking the animal up. I'm using my flashlight, looking, and I see enough that and it wasn't doing anything fishy. It was very tame. Didn't seem like there were any problems, which was a good thing, which reassured me because again, I'm not too experienced. I have a lot of friends with dogs, but I'm not too experienced, so I didn't want to. Maybe it didn't like something, and maybe it would snap a little bit. But it was very calm, and that reassured me. And so I'm just like, okay. And then I see, red, white, blue, red, white, blue. The lights are up, and I look, and there's a police officer coming up on me. And I was like, perfect. And so I was like, hello, officer, how you doing? He's like, hello, son, what are you up to tonight? I was like, oh, I was just out for a walk, but I think it's kind of late to call, like, I don't know, animal control or what, but I just found this dog. Can you help me? He was like, well, what are you doing? And I was just like, oh, I was just out for a walk. I'm on the phone with my girlfriend, actually. He was like, well, can you hang up the phone? And I was like, okay. And I was like, hey, I'll call you back. I hang up with her, and I was like, what's wrong, sir? And he's like, well, we've been getting some calls. How long you been out for this walk? And I was like, oh, I don't know, a few minutes. And I could have checked the call log in hindsight. I mean, this was probably back at the end of the whole flip phone idea, so maybe that feature was there. I could have just checked and been like, at least 15 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know. I wasn't walking athletically, but I was on the phone too, so I could have probably checked. So I probably guessed maybe 10 to 15 minutes, plus her helping me sort out how far away at least this house was. And so I told the officer, not too long, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. I was like, okay, well, you said you found this dog? I was like, yes, sir. And then I was like, while I was on the phone with my girlfriend, she was on her computer and she saw the address is, 15, 16 miles away. He's like, really? Get out. And I'm like, I think this thing might have walked here. And he's like, wow, well, does it seem like it's okay? I was like, yes, sir. I mean, and at that moment, I did pick up the dog. And no response, very tame, reassured me and clearly the officer. And if memory serves, I don't remember if his name, this is many years ago now, but I think his name was either something short, like Cody or Kyle. And so for the sake of the story, I'll say his name's Kyle. I think that fits, at least in my memory, but I don't recall. And so Officer Kyle, sees the dog. He's like, oh, and sets the dog in the passenger seat. And it sits there, chill as can be. And he's like, all right, well, what I'll do, I'll drive up there, I'll see if anyone, hopefully everything's okay. Maybe this little guy's been on this journey for a minute. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that'd be awesome. And he was like, can I have your name and do you have your ID on you? And I was like, yeah, no, absolutely. I pull out my wallet, give him my ID. And, he checks it and he was like, oh, so you're right up the street. And I was like, yes, sir. And he was like, okay, well, do me a favor. Can you head on right home? It's just kind of late. And I was like, okay. In my mind, again, I was probably 17 or 18 at the time. I didn't think curfew necessarily applied. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, okay, but he's asking me to do it. I was like, okay, I think that's fair. And so I give him my number. And he was like, I'll call you if there's anything. And I was like, yeah, and I'm not trying to be funny, but, let me know if there's a reward or something. We can split it 50-50. I appreciate you driving out. And he laughs and he's like, 50-50 sounds, potentially a plan, but I'll let you know. And I was like, okay, appreciate it. So then he leaves. I walk back home, and that's when my father pulls me out. Like, where were you? What were you doing? I was like, just out for a walk, just wrapped up. I have a potential funny story for you tomorrow. We'll see what happens. So I go to bed. I do call back my girlfriend, update her, and she's like, oh, that's so interesting. Let me know. And I was like, all right, well, good night. And so I lay down. And in my parents' house, I had the exterior, like towards the front of the house was my bedroom. So if there was a car pulling up, I would see it. And sure enough, I don't know why in hindsight, but I see again, this is at 2 a.m, or it was a lot later. I'll say somewhere between 12:30 and 2, but again, the phone was probably charging. It felt early, but I was not asleep long. So for the sake of the story, I think it was probably around, give or take, 12:30, but it felt like 2. And I remember waking up out of daze and I see the lights, which are very, they wake you up. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what the heck's going on? And it's the red light, it's up and it's on my window, and I'm just like, what is this? And then Officer Kyle calls my phone. He's like, hey, can you come outside? I was like, oh, yes, sir. What's going on? And so I got myself semi decent. I probably like this, maybe threw a hoodie on and some sports shorts, or something. And I go outside, and at that point, my dad, like he's peeking over too, and he was like, well, can you come outside? And I was like, sure. And I closed the door as quietly as I can because I don't want to wake up my mother. Because if I do remember, I think the earlier debate might have been between her and I. And so I go outside and I was like, so, what's going on? And he's like, so I drove back to the address that's on the caller and you were pretty close. It was about 15, 16 miles, like you said. And it turns out where I stopped you, that dog lives there. And so you stole your neighbor's dog. And I'm like, what? I guess it turns out the dog was outside using the restroom. I happened to be walking on the phone, but the homeowner thought I was talking to myself. And the homeowner thought that I was stealing their dog. So she called the police on me stealing her dog. And then Officer Kyle helped me steal the dog. Officer Kyle goes to their, now I know, their old house, wakes the new homeowners up. They wake up saying, no, they live back where you just came from. He drives back, gives them their dog back. And I'm not laughing, but kind of like sharing the story. I'm just like, oh, so no reward then. And he was like, have a good night. And I was like, yes, sir, sorry. And thankfully, I had no other troubles on that side of the law. But as far as my intention, I never once thought during that whole walk, from their perspective, they see somebody who they think they must not have saw my hand. Again, it's a flip phone. We're not really doing Bluetooth as popular. And it's just from their perspective, I see a guy who's talking to himself. He just took my dog. And I never thought of it that way because it probably looked a little strange as I'm like checking the caller. I'm like, what's going on? But at the same time, they should have, I don't know how long they had lived there. Again, I was far enough away. I don't really know that family. But I did not mean to make if they see this video, I'm still very sorry. It was not my intention, but I will never forget that act of what I thought was good faith. Maybe I found this weary traveler. I still don't know why it seemed skinny, but maybe it was that type of breed of dog. I don't know. But that is my Good Samaritan story that didn't quite work. No reward there. Hope you enjoyed. Hope everything's good your way. Take care. Bye.